Welcome to this walkthrough video on how to answer the IGCSE Geography Paper 2 Map Skills question from November 2021, question paper 2-2. So why this video? Really, this video shows you how to complete this question in the exam. There is always in paper 2 a map skills question worth 20 marks. There's not a lot of variety in the questions, particularly when it comes to six-figure references, bearings, and direction. And so really this video offers you hints and tips of how to approach these questions. You can either download the past questions and follow and complete as we go, or you can use them to answer other past questions. So just to recap what this exam question entails. It's worth 20 marks out of a possible 60. It's compulsory. I would recommend that you spend about 30 minutes completing it, and really these questions are based on situated in the theme settlement and or rivers, but can draw on some aspects of coast and tourism. Now for this exam, I recommend that you have the following equipment: a protractor to work out direction and bearings, a ruler to help you work out distance and the six-figure references, a pencil and ruler, and a rubber, as well as a sharpener. So before starting the exam, you have all of the resources out in front of you. I would recommend that you draw the compass. This is really important when it comes to bearings, and also it just helps you get focused. So remember to start with a straight line with north at the top and south at the bottom, and the bearings for north are 0 and for south 180. Then draw on east and west, and then you've got 90 degrees and 270. You draw two lines at a 45-degree angle. So northwest would be at 315, southeast at 135, and then you've got northeast and southwest. Then within those, at 22.5 degrees, you've got the rest. With northeast between 22.5, and to work that out, pretty much you add the two. So you always have the main direction, north starts, and then northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest, east southeast, west southeast. And so remember, you always need to add 22.5 for these small ones, and that's really important when you're having to work out the bearings. As well, when you've got the map out in front of you, double check that you know what the scale is and you know what the contour intervals are. Remember the scale. In this particular case, if it's 1 to 25 thousandths, 1 centimetre on the map is 25 centimetres in real life, or 1 centimetre is 250 metres. Another common scale is 1 to 50,000 metres, which means 1 centimetre on the map is 500 metres in real life. And again, these are the two bits of information that you need to be aware of. And so, most map skills questions always start off with questions like this. You are given a map, which you should have out in front of you, and the question might be something like this. Figure 1.1, which is sort of a sketch of a particular part of that massive map, shows some of the features in the southwest of the map extract. Study figure 1.1 and the map extract and answer the questions below. So you can see I've got the map extract, figure 1.1, and the questions here. Now the first thing to remember is that the map and the figure are always the same scale. By that, I mean they have the same dimensions. So on figure 1.1, if you were to measure it with a ruler, each grid square would be 4 by 4 centimetres, like it is on the map. And so I would strongly recommend that you draw the outline of figure 1.1 onto the map to help you focus your attention. And once you've done that, maybe using a pencil, faintly find the various symbols. So we've got A, B, C, D, E, and F is a separate question which we'll come on to. Okay? So once you've got those located, then you need to have a go at answering this question. Very simple. You just have to find out what the symbol is and match it up on the key. So here, for example, I've taken it from the key at the bottom of the map extract. So I need to match up the figure. So it looks like a railway. Okay, so I'm going to put that there. For type road B, so B is an orange roads. And so an orange road on here is the second one along, and the second one along, or what that means, is a regional roads. For C, it's a contour line. So contour lines are intervals that join points at equal heights, and there is got it written on to 25 meters. Feature D, again, is a red cross, and what's that? Okay, so the red cross is here, and it's the first one in the list, so it's a hospital, and land use at E, I need to match up, and it looks like it's a more. So if I look at the mark scheme, yeah, there we go. So taking it nice and straightforward, remember the order of the symbols is the same as with the text about telling you what it is. Now, B asks you to give the 6-figure grid reference of the traffic roundabout circle at F, shown in figure 1.1. Now, if you're lucky and you have a question that actually marks on the 6-figure grid reference, I would use the map extract because there's less confusion around it. There are fewer symbols to get confused by. So, to approach this question, remember, I would use the figure 1.1 because there are fewer symbols to get confused by. I'm going to find the feature and I'm going to circle it. I'm going to work out the grid square that it's in. Now remember, when it comes to the 4-figure reference, you're looking at the bottom, you'll find in the coordinates that are in line with the bottom left-hand corner of that particular grid square. So in this particular case, I go along the corridor to 0, 0, and up the stairs to 8, 0. So I'm going to write that down and then leave a space for the 3rd and 6th number. Then I'm going to take out my ruler and measure it along. And you can see here that it's 4 centimeters. That means because it's 1 centimeters to 25,000 centimeters, it means that 4 millimeters on the map represents 1 point for the 6-figure grid reference. So here I am coming to 16 millimeters, so 16 divided by 4 equals 4. So I'm going to write 0, 0, 4. Now to work out the 6th number, I have to go up the stairs. Again, I place my ruler along the side. I draw across the line where it's in, and it's about 9 millimeters, 9 to 8 millimeters, so I divide by 4, and that gives me an answer of 2. So I'm going to write down 13, it's 004, 802, and I check the mark scheme, and there we go. Now this particular mark scheme is very strict. Sometimes they allow a little bit of wiggle room for the 3rd or 6th number, but in this particular case, it is exact. So please make sure you do use your ruler. Okay, another particular question might ask you to provide information on tourist services. So here, from the map extract, I need to identify 2 services provided for tourists within 1 kilometre of the centre of the town. So what do we mean by tourist services? Again, it's anything that's there to allow tourists to enjoy the area. So, for example, that could be shops, facilities such as a campsite, public toilets, or infrastructure built like hiking trails and things like that, as mentioned here. So remember, we need to be able to see what can we see within 1 kilometre that would support tourism. So here's the town. I'm going to find the centre and roughly mark it on. And so 1 kilometre is 4 centimetres around that particular area. And so I'm going to mark that on. And now using the key, I'm going to just recap, look at all the various different aspects that could attract tourists. So for example, you've got resort with tourist interest. So anywhere that's marked with a red rectangle is resort with tourist interest. It could be a campsite, a leisure area, a cross-country skiing centre, anything that attracts tourists. So again, just recap here. So if I go back to my map, I'm going to spend a little bit of time highlighting these areas. So there we go. One, there's a nice tourist information centre. We've got a campsite, we've got a hiking trail, and we've got a place of interest there. So again, it's just taking your time to think out, right, what could attract people to visit this area? Can I find that on the map? So you're using the key and you're matching it up. And then again, you could have a notable monument or something like that. In my answer, I'll just put them down, and if we check the mark scheme, there we go. So some common questions that tend to be grouped together are these, which is calculating the distance, working out the compass direction, and the bearing. So we're going to take the first one for now. And the first one gives you some options. Other questions, you might have to work it out without the options, but in this particular case, you need to match up the best guess. So how to approach this? Well, remember, you are working out the approximate distances. So you're looking at the one that best fits. You need to find the start point and you need to find the end point, which I've marked here with the red circle. Then once you've done that, my tip to you is to try and divide up the route into as many straight parts as possible. So if you notice here, I've drawn a red line on all to straighten out that route, and then I've divided up each of these straight parts. Once I've drawn on those straight points and I've divided them up, I would then start taking out my ruler and measuring them. So for the first area, it comes to about 1.1, and for the second area, it comes to about 0.7 centimeters. So I'm going to mark that down. I'm going to keep on going with my ruler, and so I would get 2 centimetres, 1.3, 3.4, and 2 centimetres again. I'm going to add those up and then check my scale. So add those all up, get to 10.5. The scale is 1 centimetres, 25,000 centimetres, or 1 centimetre equals 250 metres. And so I would do 10.5 times 250 metres, and that gives me, on my reckoning, 2,625 metres. And so the closest answer would be this one. I check the mark scheme. There we go. So remember, divide up the route into as many straight parts as possible. Use your ruler, make a list, add them up, and then double check the scale. Okay, another common question is, once you've worked out that particular route, is to work out the direction and the bearing. And this is when, like I said at the start, drawing out the compass with all the various bearings is really useful. So again, you need your handy protractor. So like I said, I've drawn out the various compass and the bearings, you can see here. And I need to work out the direction in which I'm going from. Now, it says here very quickly, I'm going from the point where the D9 road meets the northern edge of the map to the junction at the bottom. So where I'm going from and to, from is the start point, to is the end point. And again, that's really important for the next part. I'm going to draw a little arrow pointing northwards at the start. I'm then going to draw a straight line between the start and the end points, take out my protractor, and then work out the bearing. In this case, with 0 being north, pointing to the top of my protractor, 90 facing east and south with 180, the bearing is going to be something like 128 degrees. And with that, I'm going to put it onto my compass with all the bearings, and as you can see, it's closer towards southeast, and I'm going to write out southeast, not SE. Now, often you will get credited for southeast, for SE, sometimes you don't. And just remember, you never say to someone, oh, you need to go in SE direction. You will say southeast direction. Check the mark scheme, and as you can see here, they require you to write it out. So always do that, please. And you can spot, obviously, they've made a slight error with the mark scheme when it comes to the units. Can you guess what that is? Okay, perhaps one of the trickiest map skills questions they might ask you is to draw and complete a cross-section, or work out the features found along that cross-section. So here I need to identify the feature at X and the feature at Y. Now remember, when I go back to the land use question at the start, if you can't remember, click in the comments, click back to the first chapter. Whenever you've got a figure in the exam paper, it's the same distance, dimensions as what you find on the map. So here I'm going to locate the line figure 1.2 and draw that on my map to give me a focus. So here I've put that in purple. And then once I've got that, I'm going to measure the distances, so you can see 8 and 8. And I'm going to see that X appears at 1.8 centimeters along that ruler. So at 1.8, I can see that it is a secondary road, because I see, right, there's a yellow line that meets it. And so I check on my key, the third one along is a yellow line, and so the third one along in the explanation is a secondary road. And so I'm going to write that in. For Y, I do exactly the same again. So on my map extract, on figure 1.2, 2.9 centimeters, what am I going to find? Again, I check that on there, I'm going to find a river. So mark that on, check the mark scheme, yep, and there we go. Secondary road and a river. Now, the final question asks you to draw on the cross section. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky. To start off with, I go back to the key and I remember what the contour intervals are. In this particular case, they are 5 meters. So if I know where I am, they will always go up or down in 5 meters. So I take out my ruler again. And I mark on, after I've worked out the contour line interview, I mark on every time a little brown line, the contour line, meets the ruler, and I write down the value. So in this case, I look for the whole number, start at 30 meters, and that's really important to work out, where I start. And if I go away from that line, I'm going towards the right, I'm going down. If I'm going, depending on what the contour lines do, the next one up and the next one down. Here to the right, it's going down because I'm going towards a river, so I'm going downhill. And so I work out from there. So each line is 5 meters. This line is above, is to the left of 30 meters, so it's going to be at 0.6, 35 meters. I then mark on the 30 meter line, 35, and so on, and so on, until I meet at the end point. With that information, I transfer it back to the cross-section of figure 1.2, and I draw those on using the ruler to help me. Okay, so at 0.6, I draw 35 meters, and so on all the way down, and then draw a nice smooth line to complete. I check the mark scheme, it says land rising to figure to between 25 and 40 meters. Yep, I have drawn that. So a common question that they ask you, particularly for rivers, is that you have to look at the map extract and describe the physical natural features of the river and or its valleys. Now here it gives us a little bit of extra information about do not refer to land use beside the river. So we only have to, in this particular case, we have to focus on the river and its valleys, not how humans have used it. So if you know what the physical features of the river are and what we mean by that for a valley, skip a little bit, wind a little bit forward onto the questions. If not, sit back and just have a recap. So, and just to cap, we're looking at as many different features as possible. Here is at 6 marks, so we're looking at 6 different features. Realistically, you should try for at least 3 features for each one. So, what do you mean by natural features of a river? Remember, describe is what you can see. So, think about the geographical theory that might help you to explain this. One of them is the Bradshaw model. And think about everything that you can see. Really, when it comes to this, you can only see channel width, and easily you can see channel width because obviously the blue squiggly line that represents the river will get wider or narrower, and you can see the gradient based on the information, sorry, the steepness of the slope either side of the river. It's very difficult to see velocity, it's very difficult to see depth, and so focus on those 2 areas. But what other features can you comment on? Well, really you can comment on the landforms that you can see and the direction of flow. So again, if we go back to the map extract, what can I see in terms of the Bradshaw model? Well, again, the width, it varies a lot. Top of the northern part of the map is a lot wider than the southern parts of the map, but in the center it's quite narrow. What landforms can I see? Well, I can see meanders towards the center of the river, tributaries, because there's blue lines joining the main river. I can see a confluence, because where there's a tributary, there's going to be a confluence, the point where that small river joins the main river. We can see lakes. And then how can we comment on the direction of flow? Well, for that, you need to look at the river or the valleys. Generally speaking, the valley, as you go downstream from the upper course to the lower course, from the source to the mouth, the width of the river should, according to the Bradshaw model, get wider. In this particular case, it's quite hard to do because we've got a lake at the top and a lake at the bottom. So we need to look for other clues. In that particular case, we need to look at the valley. Now you can see at the top of the map, to the north, the valley is quite steep slided, and then as you get further down south where the meanders are, there is a floodplain. So really what we can say is that the river from north to south gets, the direction of flow, it goes from the north to the south because it's steeper at the north, the valleys, and wider at the bottom in the south, representing the fact that the river meanders and takes up more space, so it's become wider. So when we're asked to describe the features of a valley, really we're commenting on the relief of the lands. The relief means the height and shape of the lands. So take the first part of that definition. How can we work out the height on a map? We have 3 main ways. 4 if you include layer colouring, but very rarely will you, if ever, will you see a layer colouring used on a map. Spot heights and triangulation pillars and contour lines. Now, spot heights and triangulation pillars marked on the blue triangle for triangulation pillar, or a brown or black dot for spot heights tell you the exact point, because you can see there, there's a number written next to it, 262. Whereas contour lines join points of equal height, 200 meters. Now, when it comes to using those to describe the shape of the land, we have to use contour lines. The closer the contour lines are together, the steeper the land. The further apart they are, the gentler the land is, or the flatter the land is. And so we can use words like hilly, mountainous, steep, gentle-sided slopes. Here you can see common contour line patterns that you should find on a map. For rivers, they tend to be a V-shaped valley. For glacial landscape, U-shaped valley. So V-shape, you have the contour lines very close together. U-shaped valleys, very wide valley floors. So when it comes to valleys in this particular context, we can say that there's steep-sided because the contour lines are close together, or there's a very wide or narrow bottom. So we can look at the river itself. And we can look for cues in terms of floodplains. So when it comes to this question, and we have to describe the physical and natural features of the river and its valley, let's start with the river. So the river flows from north to south. The river has multiple tributaries and meanders. Its channel has a varying width, the wider in the north than it is in the south. Around the river are some mudflats. Use evidence from the map. When it comes to the valley, we can say the valley sides are steepest and V-shaped than the north of the map, and towards the south the valley becomes flatter and forms a floodplain. If we look at the mark scheme, again, I've written very short, succinct, to the point. We can see we tick all of those boxes of the type of language that they look at. So please do go back, have a look at the type of things that you can write about when it comes to the physical features of this river and of the valley. Sometimes you have to look for evidence in two parts of the map and then tick a box. So again, practice a variety of different past papers, or look at my channel and look at the other examples I've included. And thank you for watching. Please do remember the following. Draw on any boxes or lines from the figures of the exam paper onto the A3 map. Draw a compass with bearings at the start of your exam. Identify the scale and contour line interval and take it slowly. But above all, after watching this video, if you're unsure, check out my other videos, please, and do practice, practice.